And so with the release of Windows Server 2012, Microsoft enhanced MSAs with a new thing called Group Managed Service Accounts. These GMSAs are designed to get over these initial hurdles or some of the original limitations that Microsoft themselves baked into their first attempt at this. I found this quote actually on Microsoft's website on TechNet that I just love. This is the quote, Windows Server 2012 has come to the rescue with GMSAs. You can think of a GMSA as a, quote, usable version of the managed service account. So I think that's Microsoft's apology for the limitations that were in the original release of MSAs. A single GMSA can be used on multiple hosts. It can be used for scheduled tasks. It can also be used for other things like IIS application pools, SQL Server 2012, potentially other applications as well. The only limitation here is that you have to extend your Active Directory schema to support Windows Server 2012. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have the domain or forest functional level at Windows Server 2012, but you do have to have the schema extended. You also have to have at least one domain controller running Windows Server 2012. And this is so that that server can store your managed password information. So with this introduction out of the way, let's actually create a group managed service account. I've kind of purposely left all of these different PowerShell commands still here on the screen because it's these same PowerShell commands we'll use for creating a GMSA that you could have also used for creating an old generation, a previous generation MSA. There is, however, one thing you have to set up first before you ever create a group managed service account, and that is a Kerberos Key Distribution Services root key. And in fact, if I come up here, I can show you the command add a KDS root key. This command you'll need to execute one time on your domain in order to create this root key. The root key effectively allows these different GMSAs we're about to create to execute on multiple different servers at the same time. And the root key doesn't exist until you run this command. If I do a help here on it, you can just see that essentially this generates the new root key for the Microsoft Group Key Distribution Service. Now, this is a very curious command because Microsoft coded this command to be prepared for a very large environment where you have lots of different domain controllers replicating to each other, potentially across multiple sites and with lots of site delay. And so the add KDS root key has a built-in delay such that it will not function for a period of at least 10 hours after you run the command. Curiously, Microsoft also has, if you run add a KDS root key in here, a switch called effective immediately, which in this case identifies the 10 hours that are still required before the key becomes effective. So if you run this command, immediately means 10 hours from now. Let me go ahead and run the command and we'll wait the 10 hours. No, I'm just kidding. There actually is a way in which you could hack around this effective immediately command. There's another command here. I'm actually going to copy and paste it in because it's a little complex, that you can use to spoof the 10-hour wait between running the command and being able to use the KDS root key. That is add KDS root key here, effective time being the new parameter. And as you can see here, we're effectively getting the date and time with the get date command, and then we're subtracting the 10 hours that we need to remove. So this command is one that you can use to accelerate the process of the KDS root key becoming effective for your domain. That's the GUID that's being used. That's the root key that we're creating effectively, the GUID associated with that root key. With our root key now created, we can now go about creating the commands that we need. To create that new group managed service account that will associate with the service here, we'll begin with the command new AD service account. We'll give it a name, so test GMSA will be the account name. We then need to also associate a DNS host name that these different machines will install the account to can use to identify where the account is and what the account is. That'll be a DNS host name equal to testgmsa.company.pri. We then have the very long parameter of principals, and let me just open this up so we can see it. Principals allowed to retrieve managed password right here. I love that parameter. This essentially says which security principals in Active Directory, which computers will be able to make use of this account. I'm going to set things up so that the group that will be able to use it is the domain computers group. Domain computers essentially says any computer in our Active Directory domain will be able to use this GMSA that we're creating. In a more secure environment, in a production environment, you may want to create a set of groups that these GMSAs can exist in so that you can limit their access. as we're configuring this here, we're effectively saying that this group MSA account can be used anywhere. Once we run this, this creates the new GMSA, and that now we need to install that GMSA over onto the machine where we intend to use it. Let me come back over here to our server file 1, where we were working with before. This is the server where we need to install the GMSA that we just created. Now, in order to do that, let's come back here and actually launch a PowerShell command prompt so that we can import in the Active Directory module where these service account PowerShell commandlets exist. Now you'll notice that I can't actually just do import module Active Directory here because, well, I don't have the RSAT installed currently onto this machine file 1. So let me do add Windows feature RSAT AD PowerShell so that I can get access to that Active Directory module here onto this server file 1. With it installed, I can now do import module Active Directory. And then the command I'm actually looking for is the one that installs the GMSA. That'll be install AD service account identity and then test GMSA. That will install the GMSA that we created in the domain over here onto this machine. There's another command I can use called test AD service account and then identity test GMSA as a way to test whether or not it's correctly installed here onto this machine. Once this process is complete, now remember, the GMSA exists in the domain. I can now use it like I would any other user account when I'm configuring the services here on this machine. So let me reconfigure now my VMware tools to not run against this regular domain account that we created before, the our SRV ACCT, but instead to use the GMSA. To do that, I'll come back here to Browse, and I'll enter in for the location here back to the entire directory in company.pri, and I'll do test GMSA as the account that I want to use. There's no further information that I need to enter in here because the password is managed by Windows, and so we will never know what that password is because it's being managed behind the scenes. I should, however, leave the password blank for both the password and the password confirmation down here. So if I hit OK, then that will actually assign that GMSA the logon as a service right and allow that service now to use that GMSA for the rest of its execution.